my humble prayer. Thank you.
We are grateful to you, Maharaj, for this wonderful account, not only the statistics and the external development of the activities there, but the soul of the movement, which is spirituality, how it has unfolded right from the days of Mahapurush Maharaj. So just now you mentioned how long this movement will continue to unfold its power. So we all know that since Swamiji started the movement, I would not call it West because Australia is not in the West. You can even call it South. So the movement outside India, if you would like to mention it that way, started with Swamiji. Of course, one of the centers was started even before in 1894 by Swamiji himself in the West, in outside India, before the Ramakrishna Mission was registered. So he founded it, definitely founded the mission 125 years ago, but the work was going on after Sri Ramakrishna gave sannyasa, and then the Holy Mother and all the direct disciples have in their various efforts they have made to see that this the spiritual energy which was generated by Sri Ramakrishna has been flowing. And 1 year before his Mahasamadhi, somewhere I read that Swami Vivekananda mentioned that I have given enough. I have given them. Them means perhaps he meant the people outside India, or maybe including India, that I have given them enough for 1500 years. So we hope it's not 700 but 1500, so that it will continue to expand. So if you see the future of the movement, before we come to the first of all, I would like to thank Atmeshanji for his wonderful presentation, and then we go to the last presentation, which is on Vedanta Advaita Ashrama Mayavati, a confluence of the East and the West. So Mayavati, as you all know, was started by Captain and Mrs. Xavier. Now, of course, started by Swamiji. It was Swamiji's dream, and it was his wish when he was traveling in Switzerland. And he said, if we had a whole hill for ourselves. So that's how it. The Western disciples, especially the English disciples, Captain and Mrs. Xavier, decided to sell their house. That house is still there. That mansion is still there. They sold their house without any thought, without any second thought. That's the wonderful sacrifice and the power of Swamiji's spirit, which influenced them to build this wonderful center. We'll be hearing about Mayavati and the Savior's contribution from Swami Vireshananda, who is the editor of Prabuddha Bharata, a journal started by Swami Vivekananda himself. But before that, I would just like to mention that somebody said that in the 19th century, when Swami Vivekananda and others were trying to preach these universal ideas of Vedanta, the main focus of religion was on reason. So he had to use reason, and he had to use his Jnana Yoga talks in London. Wherever he went in the West, he had to rationally establish the spiritual traditions of India, the spiritual values. In the 20th century, if you see, when the Ramakrishna Mission unfolded itself by so many centers where it expanded in India especially, and also in the West, when a lot of the focus was on humanism, that is the next century was focused more on humanism, Shiva Gyana Jiv Seva. So you find the next century, the focus was more on humanism. If now somebody asks us, what should be the focus on now? Reason is there, we need reason. Now people have more or less accepted Vedanta. Also, the service activities of the Ramakrishna movement have become immensely popular all over the world, especially in India. Now the third century, the third century after that, I think in this century, the 21st century, the focus should be on mysticism. That is how mystics commune with God through love and contemplation. So Sri Ramakrishna, I'll just quote one about mystics. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, and the gospel it is there. He said, the mystics of different religions may speak different languages, but their experience of oneness is always the same, just as all jackals in the world howl in the same way. So that is what we have to remember. And at Lahore, I just want to repeat this again. Lahore, Swamiji told a Hindu person who wanted to, a sort of fundamentalist, if you can call him. He said, he told him, he said, I have the power. Remember, I have the power to bring 1/3 of the population of the world. Remember, Swamiji was very serious when he uttered these prophecies. He said, I have the power to bring 1/3 of the population of the world under the banner of Sri Ramakrishna, but I have no intention of doing so. That's rare, very strange, a order which has been named after Sri Ram. The reason he gives is, I have no intention of doing so because that would counteract my Guru's great message of harmony. As many faiths, so many paths. That was Sri Ramakrishna's message. And then a new sect would originate in India, which he did not want to do. And people do not want now. They had enough of experiences with this personal God, prophets, books, and you see the quarrels, the strife, the intolerance. So at present, people will say, we have read enough, we have had experience of different religions, we have now, due to the social media, the expansion of the social media, we have so many ideas coming and people get confused. So they want something concrete. And because Sri Ramakrishna's religion was based on the Upanishads, it is universal, free from doctrine, dogma, or creed, and also will attract the world's attention. So that brings us to the last theme of this 3-day webinar, which is the Advaita Ashrama Mayavati, which was founded exactly for this, where there would be no doctrine, no dogma, no ritual worship. So to talk about that, I would now invite Swami Vireshananda. I'll just give a brief introduction and then I'll highlight him so that we can listen to him. He joined the Ramakrishna order, Swami Vireshananda. Of course, he was also in Australia for some time. Vireshanji joined the Ramakrishna order in 1992 at Ramakrishna Mutt in Chennai. Then he served the publication department in Chennai Mutt for about 4 years. Then in Ramakrishna Ashrama, Mysore, he was posted there. He served in the publication department of the Kannada monthly journal Vivek Prabha for nearly 8 years, from 2000 to 2008. Then he became the editor of the Vivek Prabha from 2008 to 2014. So apart from that, he participated in a very interesting program, rural outreach program for students, which is known as Gyanavahini, for nearly 10 years. So under this program, a lot of personality development workshops were conducted and based on Swamiji's life and message, and more than in more than 400 villages. It's a tremendous effort, and covering more than 100,000 students. Later on, from 2014 to 18, he became an acharya, a teacher in the probationers training center in the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission in Belur Mutt, and taught Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, Indian philosophy, and Ramakrishna Vivekananda literature to our brahmacharis. Then he left for Australia in 2018 to become an assistant minister of Sydney Vedanta Centre and served in its Sydney as well as Adelaide centers for some time. Then he returned to India in 2020 and is presently serving, as I said, as the 37th editor of Prabuddha Bharata, the oldest spiritual journal in English in India, started by Swami Vivekananda himself in 1896. So now I will highlight, yes. So I would like to welcome Swami Vireshanji, and we are very happy that we will be concluding this 3-day webinar on a wonderful theme, which will sum up the entire effort of Swami Vivekananda in the West, that is Mayavati Advaita Ashrama, a confluence of the East and West. So over to Swami Vireshananda. Maharaj, you have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself. Can you? 1 minute, I'll just check. I think you need to. Have you unmuted yourself? Yes. Now you can unmute. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you,
Am I
Maharaj.
audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you
You're
very much.
audible and we can see you as well. Please begin.
Yeah. So it is the hottest day, Maharaj, in Mayavati.
Hot
Around
in
21
Mayavati.
degrees.
Okay.
Yes, 21 degree. And a minimum temperature is around 13 degree. I feel sweating. That's why I open the doors to my this windows. So we live in here around 6,800 feet above sea level, Maharaj. And we are one of the most wonderful ashramas in the Ramakrishna Mission, you can say. I would like to show something first and then start. This is the one of the snow ranges we can see from here in the winter time, especially. I think you will be able to see this in the screen, Maharaj. Is it? Are you seeing, Maharaj? Yeah, you are not audible, Maharaj, for me.
We are able to see your screen, but you have to
Yes,
select the
wonderful,
photo.
Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. This is around 3,000 kilometers of Himalayan range. We can see from the one of the points in Mayavati, mainly on winter months, from October, November up to January. This is one of the finest thing. And Swamiji wanted the range of the place where one can see the Himalayan range that has been visualized. And now I would like to show our ashrama, Maharaj, if you permit me.
Yeah,
This is our ashrama.
1 minute. I'm permitting you. I allowed you, but we can see only the photos, not one particular.
Yes, Maharaj, I will come back. I will come back. I will come back, Maharaj.
Okay, fine.
I will come back.
Yes.
So this is one of the main building, our main building, Maharaj, where Swamiji stayed for 15 days, Maharaj. It was inaugurated recently and we had a opening of the renovated temple on March 20th and people participated. And here is a very close look of the main building, Maharaj, here. And we are here, our Prabuddha Bharata old building renovated on March 20th. And that is also a good sight to see. And this is the latest picture of our medical facility, the dispensary. It is started in 1903, Maharaj. So here we live, just an introduction of where we live and what we are doing. And you have given us a wonderful title. I congratulate you for that. The confluence of East and West. In Sanskrit, it can be translated as Sangama. The Sangama of East and West, Prachya and Paschatya. The confluence, the idea of confluence can be understood in 3 dimensions. One is the physical confluence, the confluence of Ganga or Yamuna you find in Prayagraj or Allahabad, or the mixing of the people, that is just the physical confluence. The second, the higher dimension of the confluence, the idea of confluence is respect, understanding, and appreciation between people of East and the West that you will find in the works of Max Muller and other English people. They appreciated, they respected, they studied Vedanta. So it is an intellectual confluence, according to me, or mental confluence. But what Swamiji achieved in his lifetime is the spiritual confluence. The Advaita, in its philosophical level, it is the spiritual confluence. And we don't recite any shloka or mantra when we hold a meeting in Advaita Ashrama, but we repeat the words of Swamiji, which forms our prospectus. There Swamiji says, in whom is the universe, who is in the universe, who is the universe, in whom is the soul, who is in the soul, who is the soul of man, knowing him, and therefore the universe as our self alone extinguishes all fear, brings an end to misery, and leads to infinite freedom. This is the mantra of Advaita Ashrama. We don't have any other mantra. Of course, the prospect is little bigger than this, just one sentence, but this is the essence of the Advaita. This is not the traditional Advaita Swamiji expressed in these wonderful words. It is the merging point. It is the meeting point. As you have correctly given title, it is the confluence of all the ideas and ideals, all the spiritual ideas and ideals, all the principles of all the religion, that is merged in the concept of Vedanta enunciated by Swami Vivekananda. Let me elaborate on this sentence for a while. In whom is the universe? Universe is in him. Who is in the verse? Who is in the universe? The whole universe is filled with God consciousness, or the Brahmic consciousness, or the Atmic consciousness. And it is he who has become the universe. And he is the soul of every creature in this world. And he is the soul of man also, knowing him alone, in our, yet to be our own self. Myself is not body, myself is not mind, myself is not senses, myself is that eternal universal principle called Brahman or God, alone extinguish all fear. And all this is the end of all misery. And it leads us to infinite freedom or the moksha. This is what is called the spiritual confluence, and this is the idea behind the Advaita Ashrama. Advaita Ashrama is not just a physical place I am living in. Advaita Ashrama is not even the ashrama as an administrative unit or the branch of the Ramakrishna Mission. Advaita Ashrama is the Advaita, as enunciated or proclaimed, explained by Swami Vivekananda in the prospectus of Advaita Ashrama. So I am coming to the next two words of the title. I explained to you about what is meant by confluence. Now I am coming to the idea of East and West. There is a famous saying by Rudyard Kipling. He says, East is East and West is West, and the two could never meet. But Swamiji changed that perspective. He knew the distinctions. He knew the differences between the East and West, but he held the aim of both the civilizations, East and the West, is the one, to be one with God. Therefore, he told, I shall inspire men everywhere until the world shall know. Remember, not just India. It is the whole world Swamiji is speaking of. It is the whole world Swamiji is speaking of. Until the world knows it is one with God. This is the message. This is the idea which is guiding Advaita Ashrama from last 123 years. So you are speaking of the harmony. What is the harmony? Mixing, it's not just mixing together. One should keep one's differences. I am different from you. You are different from me. The Indians are different from the Westerners. Our Indians are different from British. But essentially, we are all Atman. We are all of the nature of spiritual consciousness. We are God themselves. This is the real harmony. This is the spiritual harmony. This is the what is Swamiji taught, the practical Vedanta, seeing God in every being, seeing Atman in every being. And this is the idea which is guiding us, which is the illuminating us in the Advaita Ashrama. And Nivedita says, Swamiji had two-fold mission. What are the two missions? One mission is that world-moving mission. World-moving mission, and another is the nation-making mission. Swamiji had two dimensions in his work. The worldly, this is the perspective of the whole universe, and perspective of the from Indian perspective. And Swamiji's work led to the friendly relationship between two halves of the globe. And Swamiji told Indians to give and take is the law of the nature. The Westerners have been long time, they're giving you. They're giving you in the terms of material wealth. Now it is the time for you to share your priceless treasures with them. What is that priceless treasure? The spirituality, the Advaita Tattva, the religion of the Vedanta, religion of the Upanishad. That is the priceless treasure one has to share with the Westerners. The Indians are bound to share with the Westerners. And real work of Swami, the greatness of Swamiji lies in exchange of East and West. And it has commenced by Swamiji through the working of the Ramakrishna Mission and Vedanta centers worldwide. Now, I will tell you about a great person. He embodies this harmony. He embodies this Advaita Tattva. And I will explain to you how he is the manifestation of the real Advaita. I would make a distinction between classical or traditional Advaita. Sometimes the classical Advaita is very exclusive, but Sri Ramakrishna, whom I am speaking about now, is the real Advaitin. He is the confluence of the best of the East and West. And we say Bhaswara, Bhava Sagara. He is the ocean of the all moods, universal moods. And every earnest spiritual seeker can identify with him. And Sri Ramakrishna embodies Vedanta or the Advaita Vedanta. And I want to state a fact here. Advaita for Sri Ramakrishna is not an exclusive idea. Advaita is the culmination of all the spiritual ideals, of all the spiritual practices prevalent all over the world. Every spiritual sect practices what is called Saguna Brahma Upasana, the worship of the God with attributes. Krishna, Rama are all Saguna Brahmas. Jesus Christ, Allah are all Saguna Brahma. Everybody starts with the idea of Saguna Brahma, and the Sri Ramakrishna says the culmination will be the non-dual consciousness, that is Advaita. Every sect, every ideology finds its fulfillment in the Advaita, and it is recorded in Swami Sharadananda's Ramakrishna, the Great Master, or Ramakrishna, or the Divine Play. In Bengali, it is called Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga. So unity is the mantra, unity is the essence of the non-dual philosophy. Unity can lie only in the non-dual consciousness. So Advaitavada is not just an exclusive philosophy, it cannot be, at least in the eyes of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. It is Brahmavada, it is Chaitanyavada. As Swamiji says clearly, it is oneness with all the beings. So we, Advaita Ashrama, stands for the realization of and dissemination of these eternal truths, the oneness of all beings. Advaita Ashrama is situated at 6,800 feet above the sea level. It is a secluded place on three directions. We are surrounded by the dense forest. We have only one outlet towards the road in only one direction. And it is an ideal retreat for the realization and dissemination of the realization of the eternal truth. That is what Swamiji thought and Swamiji conceived. That is why he opted to open a center in these beautiful surroundings. What I am showing you now, it is one of the oldest photos of the Advaita Ashrama taken from the hilltop. You see, it is completely surrounded by mountains, completely surrounded by the forest. In the olden days, the forests were infested with the animals. And who has founded it? Who is the founder of this? You see the Himalayan mountains here. These great couple, whose photo I am showing now, are the founders of the Advaita Ashrama. John Henry Xavier and Mrs. Scarlett Elizabeth Xavier. John Henry Xavier.
We
Yes,
can't see the photograph, Maharaj.
Maharaj.
We are seeing your all the set of photographs, many photographs, but not one which you are selecting, that is not opening. So if
Sorry. Yeah. Yes, Maharaj. Okay, sir, must be something wrong. Okay.
So you take that folder to the background so that we can
Okay.
see from
Okay.
Just try. If you close this, yes, we can.
Yes, sir, I will close this also.
Yeah.
I will close all these things.
Yes.
Now you are able, Maharaj?
Now it is fine. Now I can see the Savior couple. Yes.
Yeah, it is the first time, Maharaj, I am experimenting. I am sorry.
No, it's fine. Now we can see the
Okay.
picture. Yes.
Okay. This is our great founders, the British couple. I am proud to say these are the finest fruits, finest flowers of the Swamiji's work in England. And John Henry Xavier is a non-commissioned officer in British Army, and the Scarlett Elizabeth Xavier is his devoted life. Now I am going to tell a story, a long story, but very, very interesting story. And these two couples were almost retired. They were leading a very relaxed and very retired lives, but they had a hunger, the hunger of the soul. that too much of doctrines they had heard in the churches and elsewhere, and their dogmas, but there was not too little of the life. Too many dogmas, but too much of little of the life. And they were frustrated. They were eager to find out the truth. They were eager to find out the real spirituality. And in the meantime, in the spring of 1896, Swami Vivekananda visited England for the second time. And he gave the lectures on Jnana Yoga, and they were attracted towards it. John Henry Wright once attended the class and came out and met the Josephine MacLeod. Josephine MacLeod was also in England, in London at the time. He asked her, is it this I heard the young man, is this young man is what he seems to be? You know this young man, is he what he seems? Look, Josephine MacLeod says, yes. Then John Henry Wright says, in that case, one must follow him. And with him we find God. John Henry Wright went to his wife and said, will you become the Swami's disciple? Will you let me become Swami's disciple? And Corlett Xavier said, yes. And again, Corlett Xavier said, will you let me become the Swami's disciple? And John Henry Wright said, I don't know, with affectionate humor. This is the beginning of the story, a story of sweet relationship, divine relationship, wonderful relationship between Swami Vivekananda and the Savior couple. And they went on attending the Swamiji's classes. They found out Advaita philosophy to be the best philosophy. It is the expression of the highest truth. And Swamiji had a conversation, private conversation also. This is the turning point of their lives. Swamiji addressed Mother Savior, we call her Carlet Savior, Mrs. Savior. Mother, would you not like to come to India? I will give you my best realizations, he said. And from then onwards, from that day onwards, Swamiji became the Guru and the son. A sweet relationship developed between them. The saviors made up their mind to follow Swamiji to India and help in the plan of the future. And Swami Vivekananda calls Mr. Savior the jewel of a lady, so good, so kind. And saviors are the only Westerners who did not hate India, who came to India to serve India. Saviors settled the domestic matters and followed Swamiji. And Swamiji went to Switzerland for 6 days leave, 6 days holiday, and saviors paid all the expenses and joined Swamiji. It was in summer 1896. And Alps, Swamiji calls Himalayas of Europe, and Alps reminded Swamiji of his beloved Himalayas. It was in August 1896, in the Alps, when he was visiting Alps, Swamiji felt longing to establish a monastery in the heart of the Himalayas. He wrote a letter in that he expressed his feeling, oh, I long for such a monastery where I can retire from the labors of my life and pass the rest of my days in meditation. Now mark these words, where my Indian and Western disciples can live together and then I shall train them as workers. The Indians will be tried to go to, as preachers. They will go and preach in the Western countries, the Vedanta in the West, and the Western disciple will devote their lives for the good of India. This is the purpose of establishing Advaita Ashrama in Mayavati by Swami Vivekananda. Swamiji had the great determination, and it was confirmed by the saviors. They wholeheartedly accepted this idea. So we can derive how much importance Swamiji gave to the idea of starting a monastery in Himalayas through his letters. In the letter in 5th August 1896, written to Lala Badri Shah, he writes, I want to start a mutt in Almora or near Almora. And in the letter 21st November 1896, he again writes, Mr. and Mrs. Xavier are going to build a mutt for me in the Himalayas. Mark these words. He always said to the outside world, it is Mr. and Mrs. Xavier who are going to establish this. He never said that it is I who am going to establish much. And in another letter he says, we want a whole hill with the view of the snow range all to ourselves. He wrote a letter to Alahinga Perumal on 20th November 1896. Mr. Xavier and his wife are going to start a place near Almora in Himalayas, which I intend to make my Himalayan center as well as for brahmacharis and sannyasis. To the Hale sisters, he wrote a letter on 28th November 1896. Mr. and Mrs. Xaviers are going with me to work and spend their own money on the monastery in Himalayas. The Himalayan one, he said, entire hill about 7,000 feet high. And he also said it should be cool in summer and also it is cool in winter. And Captain and Mr. Xavier will live there, Mrs. Xavier will live there, and it will be, mark these words, please notice these words, it will be the center of European workers. So the idea is very clear. Here you find Advaita Ashrama, Mayavati, to be the confluence of East and West. This ashrama was started for the training of the Western workers of the Vedanta movement, and also to train those future preachers who would go to the Western countries and propagate Vedanta. We all know on January 15, 1897, Swamiji returned to India, and Mrs. and Mr. Xavier accompanied him, and Swamiji gave lectures throughout India, which later came to be known as the wonderful lectures from Colombo to Almora. In May 1897, Swamiji came to Almora and gave his lecture, and a reception was given to him. There he was addressed as Shankaracharya. In Shankaracharya, he was addressed. The people gave him a reception and they told him, the great Shankaracharya, after his spiritual conquest, established a mutt in Badrikashrama, and we came to know that you are also going to establish a mutt in Koaman Hills. This area is called Koaman. This Himalayan has got two regions. One is Gadwal and another is Koaman, and we live in the Koaman range. And Swamiji also replied, this is the spot which I want to select is one of the great centers to reach the universal religion. These mountains, these Himalayan mountains, are associated with the best memories of our race. The saviors were very anxious to start a center there. On 10th October 1897, Swamiji again writes, "We do not want a place which is too cold. At the same time, it must not be too hot. It should be an institution for the training of brahmacharis." In 1898, in the month of April, saviors took up residence in Almora. They awaited Swamiji's arrival there, and Swamiji arrived with one of the greatest disciple, wonderful disciple. His name is Swami Swarupananda. The Swarupananda came there with Swamiji. So we have the confluence. Again, I am using the word confluence. The confluence of three great personalities here: Mrs. and Mrs. Xavier, Swamiji, and also the Swarupananda. Swarupananda had just sannyasa He had sannyasa in March 1898. And Swamiji said, "We have made an acquisition today." He is the dynamic worker. He is a priceless acquisition, he said. In May 1897, they again searched for the property near Almora. They failed. In the meantime, what happened is, in May 1897, the first editor of the Prabuddha Bharata, a magazine Swamiji inspired to start in Madras, the Mr. B. Rajamayer passed away. The June issue of Prabuddha Bharata had come out, but the July issue could not come out. And Swamiji heard it, immediately decided to rejuvenate, to restart Prabuddha Bharata from the Almora itself. And Swamiji told the saviors, "You see, here is an opportunity for you for a great work. The kind of work you are contemplating on you, I am giving you a capable editor, Swami Swarupananda, yourself, and Swami Turiyananda will make his work easier." And Prabuddha Bharata took a new shape, gained a new life in a place called Thompson House in Almora, and August 1898 issue started coming from there. So June 1898, the last issue of Prabuddha Bharata from Madras, due to the unfortunate death of the B. Rajamayer, there was no edition of the July 1898. Swamiji resurrected Prabuddha Bharata, and the August 1898 issue started from the Almora. But saviors were not at all satisfied with Almora. They wanted a secluded place for meditation and the work. And by the time Swamiji started magazine, saviors spending their own money, they brought the press from Calcutta, typesets, paper, everything required for the production of the journal. It was not just editorial work they took up. They printed the journal. They did all kinds of clerical works, menial works. The group of four, mainly Swamiji, Swami Swarupananda, saviors, and probably Swami Turiyanandaji and others also. And Swami Swarupananda became the editor, and Mrs. Savior became the manager. Then they again started searching for a more secluded place, a remote place, because saviors very much wanted that. And at last they purchased a land in Mayavati. It was not called Mayavati at all at that time. It was called Mayipat. There is a place, sacred place of the mother here, worshipped by the tribals. They purchased it. Very interestingly, they purchased from a British man, a retired British officer. The British couple purchased the property from the retired British officer of the Bengal Staff Corps. It was a tea garden called the Glingle Tea Estate. Its name was Glingle Tea Estate. The owner was W.J. McGregor. He was a retired British officer, and he was British living in India, and our savior couple purchased land from him, about 65 acres, and it is around 6,300 to 7,300 feet. The idea is very clear. East and West must meet on the equal footing of love and unity of purpose. And the people from East and West should exchange ideas with each other with their highest ideas. Mayavati is situated 50 miles from the Almora. It is around, as I have already told you, has a magnificant view of the snow range of around 300 miles. Is cut off from the outside world. And in nearest human habitation is 3 miles away. And the nearest railway station is 60 miles away. When it was purchased, there were only 3 buildings. And the mutt started, the Advaita Ashrama started. It was registered on Sri Ramakrishna's birthday on March 19, 1899. And Swamiji wrote a letter, a part of which I already read. Now it is called the Prospectus of Advaita Ashrama. And he continues in that letter, here it is hoped to keep Advaita free from all superstitions and weakening contaminants. Here will be taught and practice nothing but the doctrine of unity, pure and simple. And though in entire sympathy with all other systems, this ashrama is dedicated to Advaita and Advaita alone. And Swami Swarupananda was appointed the head of this ashrama, first president of the Advaita Ashrama, Mayavati, and he also served as the editor of Prabuddha Bharata. And Mr. and Mrs. Xavier continue to work here, continue to meditate here, and spend a dedicated life here. They settled here virtually as sannyasis, plain living and a high thinking. Mr. Xavier was revered by the local people as Pitaji, the father. He wore South Indian dhoti, it is said. He wore an Indian dress. And Mrs. Xavier also wore sari while she was living within the ashrama. And she was called Mataji. Sometimes even Devi, goddesses, the local people would call her. Unfortunately, Mr. Xavier passed away in 28th October 1900, and he had a Hindu cremation. And Swamiji writes, Brahmins were chanting the Veda, the boys were carrying his corpse, and he was cremated in the near stream. Well, the stream was flowing at that time near Mayavati, and he was cremated on the bank of a rivulet here. And Swamiji came to Mayavati, cutting short of his Western visit on 3rd January 1901 and spent here 15 days. And 13 January, Swamiji's birthday was celebrated here. He consoled Mrs. Xavier and he charted out the future plans on consultation with Swarupananda and others. And Swamiji passed away in 1902. The Swarupananda, young man, passed away in 1906 out of pneumonia. And Mrs. Xavier was left alone here. Of course, there was a monk, wonderful monk, dynamic monk, a true disciple of Swami Vivekananda, Swami Vireshananda, and others. And Mrs. Xavier traveled to England only 2 times, in 1901 and 1908. But she paid occasional visits to Bengal, Benares, and Calcutta. And Swarupananda and later Swami Vireshananda took special care of mother. In 1914, Swami Vireshananda established another ashrama in Shamlatal. Mrs. Xavier donated sufficient money for the establishment of the ashram. In 1916, she left India for good and settled in England. In 1930, she passed away. But she was sending regular donations and she was writing, she had correspondence with the inmates of the both ashramas, Mayavati as well as the Shamlata. And she always signed her letters as the old mother, old mother. I am going to tell you a little bit about Mrs. Xavier now. And it was a life of consecration and dedication. And she was a very good writer. Her writing was delightful. She had written many articles to Prabuddha Bharata. Her pen name was Monist, that is Advaitin. And mother, it is said, because I am quoting from her obituary, published in Prabuddha Bharata in 1930s. Mother was the embodiment of sweetness and love personified. She would give pecuniary help. She would distribute fruits and vegetables to the workers and the local villagers, and she would dispense medicines also. She had a chest, almirah, where she kept the medicines. Later, it became the origin, it became the source of starting up a big dispensary and hospital in Mayavati in 1903. She showed kindness and love even to ashrama cattle, ponies, goats, and even dog, a dog called Glama. That photo I am going to show you. And every letter she would write, pats to Glama. And she was an affectionate mother. Whenever an inmate, monastic or non-monastic, would approach her with their problems, mother always advised and guided them. And all the more, she had a great veneration for Sri Ramakrishna. She would tell Sri Ramakrishna, of all the perfect men that have appeared on earth, I consider Sri Ramakrishna as the greatest. She gave substantial money to our ashramas, including Belur Much. And Shuddhanandaji has great reminiscences on her. And she would say she was enthusiastic about preaching of the Advaita philosophy. She had a regulated life, practiced rigorous self-discipline, austerity, self-sacrifice, spent money on service activities of the Ramakrishna Mission, and she had maternal instincts, motherly love that flowed her in abundance towards the disciples and the admirers of the Swami Vivekananda. And she had a complete transformation by the touch of Swami Vivekananda. about her daily routine. She had 2 bungalows in the old buildings in Mayavati print sticks. She would spend daytime there, but spent in her time, she sleeps in a corner room of the main building. And she would cook for herself and would invite others also. And she would invite for the evening tea. One or the inmates or the guest swamis would go for her evening tea, which she would serve herself with all love and affection. And she would meditate, work, and she would read the proofs of Prabuddha Bharata every month. She would help in editing Complete of Swami Vivekananda, the very first edition, and also the Life of Swami Vivekananda, a great project initiated by Swami Vireshananda Ji Maharaj. And it was a beautiful confluence. Again, I will use the word confluence. Maharaj has given that wonderful word, I say, confluence, sangama, the sangama of work, meditation, devotion, and the knowledge. And she had the qualities of head and heart. And it is said everything about her was sweet and graceful. This is all I am quoting from very reliable source, the contemporary source, her own obituary published in Prabuddha Bharata. Unfortunately, she used to have frequent heart attacks, and she died peacefully with full awareness in England, in London, perhaps, I do not know the area, Maharaj would know, on October 23rd, 1930. And her niece was serving her. Upon her death, her niece received a letter that someone had written, Mrs. Xavier never preached religion, but she lived it. Dear friends, we now know the meaning of Sangama. We now know the real meaning of the confluence. In ideological level, or in the mystical level, or in the physical level, it is Advaita philosophy as preached, as practiced by Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and Holy Mother. In Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, we find the human embodiments of that principle. Advaita means pure love. Advaita means pure compassion, seeing God in all, seeing the same one infinite consciousness in all, nothing short of it. And Swami Vivekananda, very touch of Swami Vivekananda produced great personalities. They are the British couple. Unfortunately, Mrs. Xavier did not live long. He is the first martyr. But Mrs. Xavier lived long enough to show how Swamiji's ideal, the confluence of the East and West, organization, discipline, all are the best characteristic of the British civilization. Now we have the wonderful idea of Brahma Vidya, Advaita, philosophy. In Mrs. Xavier, we find the embodiment of it. Friends, we do not have any memorial for Mrs. Xavier here. We don't have any plan to erect any memorial. Because as inmates of the Advaita Ashrama, we are told the whole Mayavati Ashrama itself is the greatest memorial of Mr. Xavier and the Mrs. Xavier. They are the real confluence of the East and the West. I am very thankful to Swami Sarvasthananji Maharaj for having given me this wonderful opportunity to meet you all, to interact with you all, and say something about the Advaita Ashrama. We do not have temples here, but we have two great temples here. One is the main building, which it has been renovated now, and also the Prabuddha Bharata office, which was inaugurated in 1914. And the work started in 1912. Vireshananda did Homa here on the occasion of the opening. And also until 2017, our great revered editor Swamijis worked here, including Swami Ashokanandaji, Swami Gambhiranandaji, Swami Yatishwaranandaji, and in recent times, Swami Bhajananandaji and others. So this is a blessed place. We have the living monuments here. This very place, the ashrama, is filled with spiritual vibration, which has been kept impure and immaculate for the last 123 years. And within 2 years, we are going to celebrate 125 years of the establishment of the Mayavati Ashrama. And Prabuddha Bharata has already crossed 125 years. Now it is in 127 years.
Yes.
The 127 years of the journal, imagine. And Swami Vivekananda started this. So we brought out a special issue on this as a special January issue of the 2021. And we regularly bring out the special issue. Last year, January, on a very relevant topic, contemporary topic, living a meaningful life in a digital world. And we devote each issue on a specific topic. And religion, spirituality, or about the sufferings, about the problems of life, on Holy Mother, and this issue we have devoted to Ramakrishna Mission. So my humble request, if you want to give respect and reverence to Advaita Ashrama and Swami Vivekananda, please subscribe to this noble magazine. It has got a history, it has got a holy tradition, it is holy magazine in a very sense. The simplest way of subscribing is to go to Advaita Ashrama website, advaitaashrama.org, and you will be guided there. You can make an online payment, and there is digital subscription also if you don't want hard copies. Very nominal price. We give 50 pages of wonderful material for reading, not just for the head, it is for the heart and for the soul. And please subscribe it. This is my humble request. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
We are very grateful to you, Maharaj, for this wonderful account. Especially the people here in the United Kingdom will feel proud that they have contributed a little.
It's British Ashrama, Maharaj. It is a British Ashrama in India.
Yes. And the Saviour's house is still there. The house which, of course, had to sell so that they could, with that money, they could build. It is there in Finchley Road. The whole mansion is there. So we will be completing 75 years of the mission here. And of course, Swamiji's 125 years of his England visit, unfortunately, because of COVID, we could do nothing. But we had even talked to Swami Muktidanandji when he was here to have a small group coming. He had started a retreat. So I think Shuddhidanandji also has agreed. But after COVID, maybe a small group.
We have plans. We have plans.
Yes.
We have plans, Maharaj.
Yeah, when the COVID situation is more. So we would plan with some of the
And
devotees.
one personal note, I will tell you, Maharaj.
Hmm.
I came in 2020 when in the thick of the COVID. It was
Yes,
very difficult to run the magazine.
yes.
And we couldn't post the journal copies also for 3 months.
Hmm.
And our subscription was dwindled like anything. By Guru
And-
Maharaj grace, now
Yeah.
everything is all right. And we
And-
are on the ascending stage,
Yes.
Maharaj. Everything happening
And
wonderful.
moreover, I think the digital copy also is a very good idea.
Yes, Maharaj. That we have
And you
introduced
don't have,
last year.
you'll be saved from the hassle of printing.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
So when you,
That
at
is
the
the
same,
idea.
yeah, and at the same time, it will sustain the magazine and the expense.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes. That is what I wrote. Because physical copies we cannot continue to print for years and together.
Yes.
And future belongs to digital.
Hmm.
So we have already done the digital subscription.
Okay.
And of course, and recently we have archives, Maharaj,
Yes.
whole 127 years, except for the present year.
Okay.
All the issues are available in archives
Yes.
just for the payment of just around $9.99 for
Oh.
3 years. For 3 years, not
Oh.
even for 1 year. You will have full access. You can take printout. You can do
Okay.
searching.
Oh,
So that's a wonderful facility. We are
it has
doing
been announced in the magazine.
Yeah, it has been announced just about 1 month back. It was released, Maharaj.
Okay.
So it has to be advertised and
Oh.
it should be popular.
No,
It
it
is
will be very
something.
usure because the archive.
Yes, for scholars and all that. Yes, we have from 1896 July issue up to 2021 December issue. We have all the issues.
All
Of course, as I
searchable.
told you,
Ah,
yes, Maharaj, searchable means title wise, author wise, and even the monthly wise. We are going to have the subject wise also. We are doing Kolkata. In Kolkata, we have wonderful people there, and we are doing they are doing the work, Maharaj. They are seriously doing. Especially, I should congratulate and compliment Swami Shuddhidananda ji, because in 125 years celebration he took his initiatives. Despite of the COVID situation, we increased the subscription to nearly more than 1,000, and all these projects were there when we had a seminar and all that. Sitting in Mayavati, we are very helpless in this matter.
But I
only
think
we can.
yes, maybe for digital, I think would be a better idea. If you can,
Yes, Maharaj.
physically, it is nowadays it's so difficult. But in any
and we have taken a conscious decision not to make it free also. It is a conscious decision so that people will be encouraged to buy it. Then only they will be able to read it.
They will be serious. They will be serious.
Yes.
Small token, unlike Vedanta Kesari, which is giving free. But still,
so that is they have some money for it, meant for it.
Yeah, you have to. The whole ashrama has to run on less. There are no other activities. You see, even the hospital has to run.
Yes.
So, and anyway, Maharaj, the today's theme, if you can send a transcription, if you have already.
Yeah, I will do, Maharaj. I have already made a copious notes on this. I will write down.
You can write. We can publish in a. If it is long, don't worry about the length, because we have a system where we give it in parts. And our Vedanta is also a very old magazine. And
in fact, there are some more material, Maharaj. By Satya Priyananji's long article is there. There are many more descriptions, wonderful description. I couldn't include it in my presentation. That I will try to do, and if you permit me, I will make it a long article.
Yes, make it very long, as long as you don't worry, 3 parts also we can do.
And I will emphasize on the British aspect of it.
Yes, not only British, because they have done it. It's nothing.
Yes, Maharaj. It is British achievement, Maharaj. It is the
Savior's achievement. Yes, the Savior, Mother Savior, the mother of Mayavati.
Yes, Maharaj.
Also.
Yes, Maharaj, Mother of Mayavati. We have a book, wonderful book. And also lastly, I forget to say, somebody said in the obituary it is written, she is mother in every sense. She is mother in every sense.
So the idea of Advaita, how it nicely merges with the idea of motherhood of.
Yes, Maharaj. She is Advaitin, real Advaitin, more than any one of us. Indians. Yes, Maharaj.
Oh, wonderful,
Maharaj.
wonderful. So you
Thank you,
can beautifully write something on Mother Sevi,
Yes,
the
sir.
mother of Mayavati.
Writing is
And
not a difficult thing, Maharaj. Only
Yeah.
giving lectures, because I do not give frequent lectures, so I have lost habit of it after
and
coming to my.
moreover, presentations, even we found
Yeah.
it difficult. Satyashananji.
Yes, sir.
Yes. But
Yes,
anyway,
yes.
we are happy you could join us. And I'm glad to know that.
Maharaj, if I am permitted, I will show some pictures for
Yes,
5 minutes, 2
please,
minutes.
please, please.
This is saviors I showed,
Yes.
and this is Maharaj actually taken in Kashipur,
Okay.
where you find both say Mrs. Savior and Mrs. Savior present there,
Okay.
along with Alasinga Perumal and Ramakrishna Nandaji, Premanandaji, Shivanandaji, and Madras Narsimhacharya and others. Maharaj.
Oh, this is in Kashipur.
Kashipur or Arambadar Math? I am in doubt, Maharaj. In Kolkata. In Kolkata
Okay.
it is taken.
Okay.
And this is Raja Mayer, who was our first editor, who
Yes.
died at the age of 30. Just 30 he was.
Yes.
All our pioneers, Maharaj, died very young.
Yes.
Swarupananji died probably at the age of 40 or something.
Yes.
And all 40, 45, 35, they died.
Swamiji himself.
Yes, yes, yes. And this is the first cover of Prabuddha Bharata.
Okay.
But it was not liked by Swamiji, but for 1 or 2 years it was our cover.
Okay.
And this is Swami Swarupananda.
Okay. Very nice.
Yes. And this is the printing press that was used to print Prabuddha Bharata, Maharaj.
The first
We still
issue.
have it in our museum.
Yes.
We have a museum. We have it. It was a cramped space, very small space in a corner of the building.
Okay.
And the printing press was running. And Turiyananji was a fly boy there. Used to gather the paper. Turiyanandaji,
Yes.
of all
Yes.
the people.
Yes.
Yeah. And here in this press, first copy of first edition of the complete works and first edition of the life of Swami Vivekananda were also printed.
Oh my God.
And this is a beautiful view of our ashram in the olden days. It's of course, and when it was snowed, once this is the photo, and of course Swamiji. And this is Dharamgarh Maharaj, where it is some 2-3 miles away from here on the top of the hill, where Swamiji visited it. And he wanted to settle there and meditating and studying. He has expressed it. And guests go there. And this is the lake where Swamiji walked, on the banks of which Swamiji walked.
Yeah.
And this is called Viveka Sarovar.
Viveka Sarovar. Now artificially restored. Yes.
Yes, Maharaj, it was a volleyball ground for some years. Now it is restored, and it's a wonderful place, Maharaj. We have, and near to it, we have built a new staff quarters. The staff quarters is a beautiful building in the beautiful setting, Maharaj. You should come and see it, visit it.
Yes, sure.
And this is
yes,
yes, Maharaj.
This is old Prabuddha Bharata.
Yes, Maharaj. This is below. This is an important photo. Is for Nivedita, Mrs. Savior, and Lady J.C. Bose's wife, and Sister Christine. They all visited Mayavati, and photo has been taken. And this is a very interesting photo, and many monks and the other people you will see in front of the new building. It was a new building at that time, Prabuddha Bharata new building.
Okay.
Now it is more than 110-year-old. You can see Atulanandaji below.
Yes, yes.
And you can see Prajnanandaji there.
Okay.
And probably Abhayanandaji is there
Bharat
also.
Maharaj, yes.
Bharat Maharaj also is there. Of course, Virajanandaji is not there. Virajanandaji had gone to this Shamlatan.
Okay.
And this is again print in Swarupananda.
Yes.
And this is where Swarupanandaji used to go and sit for meditation. It's a kutira.
Yeah.
For Swarupananda Kutira, we call it. It is just aside, just behind our new building here in the ashrama.
Yes.
And this is Swarupananda point. It is away from the ashrama near Goshala. It is a very secluded place where Swami Swarupananda would go and meditate. And perhaps he had seen a tiger there, it is said, Maharaj. Even now it is densely forest, dense forest, and people have seen leopards there in that
There's
area.
a Jim Corbett Park there.
It was an extension of Jim Corbett, right? This forest was infested with tigers earlier.
Okay.
Now there is no tigers, but there are a lot of leopards, and many villagers have seen it. Recently, one woman was killed and carried away by a leopard, and we hear those stories. And by God's grace, none of our monks, I lost 123 years, none of our monks have affected by that. And the tigers have entered our ashrama. That account is there. Swamiji himself writes in one place. And this is Mrs. Xavier photos, Maharaj, in her kutira, and it's such a lovely lady. And this is one of the building used by the Mrs. Xavier, perhaps in the summer, Maharaj. It is her summer cottage, and this is her winter cottage. And the both buildings we had to renovate. It is in old condition, but they are good, not broken. But we had to renovate. We have a project to renovate it. And this is our dispensary.
Yes.
The old dispensary building. I will show the new dispensary building also. This is our Kolkata office, present Kolkata office. And Shuddhidanji has taken project of 42 crores to build a new building just behind this ashrama.
Yes.
And lastly, this is our new building, Prabuddha Bharata new building, where I am here. It is built in 2017. 2007. Until 2017, the respected monks were living and working in that old area.
Yes,
old
I have
building,
come to this
old
building. Yes.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you.
This is-
Yeah. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much. And we are waiting for your article. And hopefully, in the next 3 issues, you don't bother about the length.
Give me 1 month, Maharaj.
Yeah, take your
Get
time,
it.
but
Yes,
let it not be short. Make it as big as possible.
Yes.
Don't try to cut down.
It is easier to write long letters.
Yeah,
Difficult to condense.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Maharaj. Very much.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.